The International Space Station floated silently above Earth, a silver speck against the vast canvas of stars. Inside, the hum of machinery was a constant companion, echoing through the narrow corridors. Commander Elena Vasquez sat at her workstation reviewing the latest research data. It was supposed to be a typical day aboard the ISS, but an undercurrent of unease buzzed through her like static electricity. "Everything all right, Commander?" asked her colleague, Dr. Rajesh Patel, his eyes flicking from the glowing screens to her face. "Yeah, just something feels off," Eleanor replied, rubbing her temples. The data from the last experiment had shown some anomalies, but nothing she could pinpoint. She brushed aside her concerns and focused on the tasks at hand. They were all tired. The isolation of space and the endless rotation of duties weighed heavily on them. As Elena continued her work, she glanced out of the viewport. The curvature of the Earth was breathtaking, a brilliant swirl of blue oceans and green continents. But there was something else, a cluster of debris floating nearby. A larger piece of what looked like an old satellite glimmered in the sunlight, its sharp edges glinting ominously. They were accustomed to space debris, but this felt different. She turned back to her computer, pushing the unease aside. "Are we still on schedule for the spacewalk?" she asked, diverting the conversation. "Yeah, we're all set for 1400 hours, Rajesh confirmed, his voice steady. "Just checking the suits and the tools." Elena nodded, grateful for the distraction. They had a mission to complete, and she wouldn't let paranoia get the better of her. The scheduled spacewalk began uneventfully. Elena and Rajesh floated outside the ISS, tethered to the station, as they replaced old solar panels. The view was magnificent. Earth spun beneath them, a vivid mosaic of clouds and land. "Got it," Rajesh said, securing the last bolt on the panel. Eleanor felt the familiar rush of adrenaline that accompanied working in the vacuum of space. Just as they finished, Elena's helmet radio crackled to life, a garbled message breaking through the static. "Commander Vasquez, this is Mission Control. Do you copy?" "Loud and clear, Mission Control," she replied, frowning at the transmission. "Are you experiencing any anomalies on your end? We're picking up unusual readings from your area." Elena exchanged a worried glance with Rajesh. "No anomalies here. Just routine maintenance." "What kind of readings?" "Radiation spikes and erratic magnetic fluctuations," the voice replied. "We need you to monitor any changes and report back immediately." "Understood," Elena said, her heart racing. They hadn't mentioned anything about radiation prior to their launch, and the ISS was supposed to be one of the safest places in space. "Be careful out there," Mission Control added before the transmission faded. Elena felt a chill race down her spine. She and Rajesh exchanged uneasy looks, the weight of the unknown heavy in the air around them. After the spacewalk, the crew returned to the station, an unsettling quiet enveloping them. They gathered in the common area, the walls of the ISS lined with small personal mementos that reminded them of home. "Did anyone else feel that?" Rajesh asked, breaking the silence. "What, the radiation?" Elena replied, crossing her arms. "We should have felt something if it was bad." "Not just that," Rajesh continued, leaning closer, lowering his voice. "There was a moment during the spacewalk when I thought I saw something out there. Like a shadow moving near that debris." Elena's stomach tightened. "What do you mean, a shadow? Could it have been an illusion?" Rajesh shook his head. "I don't know. It felt real. I can't shake the feeling we're not alone out there." Before Elena could respond, the station's alarm system blared, red lights flashing urgently. The crew scrambled to their stations, confusion and dread mounting. "Status report," Elena shouted, her voice barely audible over the alarm. "Systems are stable," Rajesh reported, typing furiously at his console. "But we're picking up unusual communication signals. They don't match any known satellite transmissions." "Can we triangulate the source?" Elena asked, her mind racing. "Working on it," Rajesh replied, his fingers dancing over the keyboard. It's coming from the debris field. Hours passed, and the alarm finally fell silent, but a tense atmosphere lingered among the crew. They were on edge, their camaraderie strained by the unspoken fears hovering in the air. As they gathered for their evening briefing, Elena took a deep breath, determined to face whatever lay ahead. "Listen up," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "We need to stay focused. We're scientists and astronauts. We're trained for this. Rajesh, can you give us an update on those signals?" "Sure," he replied, looking up from his notes. "The signals seem to pulse irregularly, almost like a pattern. It's not just random noise, there's something intentional about it." "What do you mean intentional?" asked Lisa, the mission's biologist. "It feels like a call, like someone or something is trying to reach us," Rajesh explained, his brow furrowing. "I'm not sure how to explain it, but I think it's crucial we investigate that debris." Elena nodded. "Agreed, but we need to be careful. I don't want to risk anyone getting hurt." "Or worse," muttered Marcus, the station's engineer, crossing his arms. "What if this is a trap?" "Let's not jump to conclusions," Elena said, trying to maintain a sense of calm. "We'll need to formulate a plan, assess the risks, and decide if it's worth investigating further." As the night wore on, Elena couldn't shake the feeling of dread weighing heavily in her chest. The ISS, once a sanctuary among the stars, now felt like a cage. The hum of machinery became a constant reminder of their isolation, and the unknown looming beyond the station's walls gnawed at her. Sleep eluded her, and she found herself staring at the small window in her cabin, the stars twinkling like distant promises. Suddenly the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. The backup systems kicked in almost immediately, but the sudden silence left an unsettling chill. "Rajesh?" Elena called out, her voice trembling slightly. She fumbled for the flashlight in her pocket, the beam cutting through the darkness. "Over here," Rajesh's voice echoed from the corridor. "What happened?" "Lights went out. Just a flicker," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Did you feel that?" "Yeah, like a tremor. It's almost like the station is shifting," Rajesh said, stepping into the faint light. The air felt heavy, thick with an unspoken tension. "We need to check the systems," Elena said, her heart racing. As they made their way to the control room, the alarms blared again, a piercing siren that sent adrenaline surging through Elena's veins. The crew quickly assembled, faces pale with fear. "What's going on?" Marcus shouted over the chaos. Rajesh was already typing at the control panel, his expression grim. "We're losing atmospheric pressure. It's dropping fast." "Seal off sections A and B," Elena ordered, her voice cutting through the panic. "We need to contain this." With the crew working in a frenzied state, Elena monitored the pressure levels, her heart pounding in her chest. As they sealed off the sections, the atmosphere felt thick with desperation. Each second stretched like an eternity, the reality of their situation crashing down on them. "Pressure stabilizing," Rajesh reported, but there was no relief in his voice. "But the source of the leak? I can't pinpoint it." "Are we sure the damage isn't external?" Lisa asked, her eyes wide with fear. "Let's hope not," Elena replied, biting her lip. The thought of debris damaging the ISS sent chills down her spine. "Rajesh, can you check the external cameras?" Rajesh nodded, quickly pulling up the footage. The screen flickered, showing the empty expanse of space surrounding them. The stars twinkled innocently, and for a moment it felt like a cruel joke. "Wait," Rajesh said suddenly, his voice low. "There, look." Elena leaned closer, squinting at the screen. A dark shape drifted among the debris, shifting slowly as if observing the station. "What the hell is that?" Marcus whispered, his face pale. "Whatever it is, it's moving towards us," Rajesh said, his fingers flying over the controls. Can we maneuver the station? Elena asked, adrenaline surging. I'm trying, but it feels like something is interfering with our systems, Rajesh replied, panic creeping into his voice. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Elena shouted, her heart racing as she glanced at the screen. The dark shape was closer now, its outline becoming more defined against the backdrop of stars. It resembled an elongated figure, with protrusions that looked like claws. Systems are unresponsive, Rajesh's voice trembled. We're losing power. Elena felt her throat tighten as the figure loomed larger on the screen, an unfathomable presence that seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. We need to get to the escape pods, she yelled, her voice breaking the tension. No, Marcus protested, his eyes wide with fear. We can't just abandon ship. It's either that or risk losing everything, Elena shouted back, her heart pounding. The crew scrambled for the escape pods, panic erupting in their faces. As they moved, the lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness. Elena's heart raced as she felt a sense of foreboding wash over her. They had to escape, but something deep within her felt like they were being watched. Like the dark figure was waiting for them to make a move. The escape pod doors sealed shut with a hiss, and Elena felt the rush of claustrophobia. They were adrift, cut off from the ISS and the malevolent force pursuing them. The pod's control panel flickered to life, and Rajesh punched in the coordinates for the nearest space station. Where's the dark figure? Lisa whispered, her voice shaking. It's gone, Rajesh said, looking pale, but we can't let our guard down. The pod shook violently as they activated the thrusters, a jolt that sent them tumbling away from the ISS. As the pod settled into a new trajectory, Elena felt a momentary sense of relief. They had escaped, for now. Can we establish a communication link with Mission Control? Elena asked, her heart racing as she tried to steady her thoughts. I'll try, Rajesh said, his hands flying over the controls. The pod's interior lit up with a soft glow, but the screen remained blank. There's no signal, Rajesh said, his voice heavy with dread. What do we do now? Lisa asked, her voice trembling. We wait, Eleanor replied, forcing herself to breathe. We need to conserve power and stay alert. Hours passed in tense silence, the only sound the soft whirring of the pod's life support systems. Elena stared out the small viewport, the vastness of space stretching endlessly before them. A feeling of isolation wrapped around her, tightening like a noose. Do you think we'll be rescued? Marcus asked, breaking the silence. I don't know, Elena admitted, her heart heavy. But we can't give up hope. Just then the control panel flickered again, and a strange noise filled the pod. A low, guttural sound that sent chills down Elena's spine. What was that? Lisa gasped, her eyes wide with fear. I don't know, Elena said, her throat dry. Rajesh, can you check the sensors? Rajesh's fingers flew over the console, but his face grew pale as he looked at the readings. Something is moving toward us. Fast. Activate the defenses, Elena shouted, adrenaline coursing through her veins. It's too late, Rajesh whispered, his voice trembling. It's already here. The pod shook violently as the dark figure crashed into it, metal groaning under the pressure. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across their faces. Elena's heart raced as she fought against the panic rising in her throat. Brace for impact, she shouted, gripping the controls. The pod spun wildly, and Elena felt herself being tossed against the wall. She scrambled back to her feet, heart pounding, as the creature outside pressed against the hull, its shape more defined now. It was a grotesque amalgamation of metal and organic matter, pulsating as if it were alive. What the hell is that thing? Marcus yelled, terror etched across his face. I don't know, but we have to fight, Elena shouted, her voice fierce. Get ready. They rushed to the small storage compartment, pulling out tools and equipment to use as weapons. Rajesh armed himself with a wrench, while Lisa clutched a makeshift spear made from a broken pipe. Let's do this, Elena said, steeling herself for what was to come. Suddenly, the creature's claws pierced the metal of the pod, scraping against the surface with a sound that sent shivers down Elena's spine. It felt like time slowed as the air turned electric with tension. The creature's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as it stared at them, a predatory gaze that promised terror. "Now!" Elena shouted, lunging forward. With a fierce roar, the crew fought against the creature, a chaotic struggle of desperation and fear. The pod trembled around them, the walls shaking as they pushed back against the entity. "Elena, over here!" Rajesh yelled, dodging a swipe from the creature's claws. "Help me! We need to disable its grip!" Elena shouted, her heart racing. With a final surge of adrenaline, they launched their makeshift weapons at the creature. The metal screeched and groaned, but it only seemed to anger the creature further. "Keep pushing," Elena urged, her voice hoarse. The darkness swirled around them, an almost palpable force as they fought against the unknown. Every swing felt like a desperate attempt to cling to life, to escape the abyss that threatened to swallow them whole. As they fought, Eleanor couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a chance encounter. This creature had been waiting for them, lurking in the shadows, drawn by their presence. "Why us?" she shouted as they battled, gasping for breath. "What does it want?" Rajesh's face was pale, but determination burned in his eyes. "We need to find a way to disrupt its control over the pod." With a final push, they forced the creature away, creating a small opening. "Get to the control panel," Elena shouted. "We need to override the systems." As they scrambled for the panel, the creature snarled, its fury echoing through the pod. The walls vibrated and the lights flickered wildly, casting grotesque shadows. "Got it!" Rajesh shouted as he accessed the controls. "If we can initiate a self-destruct sequence, we might be able to take it with us." "Are you insane?" Marcus yelled, panic rising in his voice. "It's our only chance," Rajesh shouted back, urgency driving him. As Rajesh worked to initiate the sequence, the creature lunged forward, claws slashing through the air. Elena and Lisa fought desperately to keep it at bay, but the dark figure seemed almost invincible, its strength overwhelming. "Just a few more seconds," Rajesh shouted, sweat dripping down his brow. Elena felt the weight of desperation pressing down on her. They were out of time, the creature closing in, and the self-destruct sequence was their last hope. The countdown began, the red numbers flashing ominously on the control panel. Elena's heart raced as they continued to fend off the creature, every second feeling like an eternity. "Get ready," Rajesh shouted, his fingers flying over the controls. As the countdown ticked away, the creature roared, a sound filled with rage and hunger. It lunged at them, but Elena stood firm, refusing to back down. "Now!" Rajesh shouted, and with a final push, they hit the activation button. The pod shook violently, the alarms blaring in a cacophony of noise. The creature let out a final, bone-chilling scream as the lights dimmed and darkness engulfed them. In the chaos of the explosion, Elena felt a strange calm wash over her. They were enveloped in a blinding light, and for a moment, she felt weightless, suspended between worlds. Then, everything went dark. When Elena awoke, she was floating in the void of space, the remnants of the pod scattered around her. She looked around, her heart racing as she searched for her crew. "Rajesh, Lisa, Marcus," she called, panic rising in her chest. One by one, the figures began to emerge from the debris, battered but alive. Relief flooded through her as they gathered. The darkness around them felt less oppressive. "What just happened?" Rajesh asked, looking around in confusion. "I don't know," Elena replied, still shaking from the encounter. "But we have to get to safety. We can't let whatever that was find us again." As they floated together, the realization dawned on Elena. They had escaped, but the darkness lingered, a constant reminder of the horrors they had faced. They were alive, but the universe held secrets far beyond their understanding, and the scars of their encounter would haunt them for eternity. Days passed, and the crew managed to establish contact with another space station. They were rescued, but the weight of their experience clung to them like a shroud. In the debriefing room, Elena faced the panel of officials, their expressions unreadable. "Tell us what happened out there," one of the officials demanded, their tone cold. Elena took a deep breath, steeling herself. "We encountered something in the debris field. It was not just debris. It was alive, or something akin to it. It was trying to reach us." "And the signals?" another official interjected. "What were they?" "We don't know," Elena replied, feeling the familiar unease settling in her gut. But it felt intentional, like it was drawing us in. The officials exchanged glances, their expressions revealing nothing. "Thank you for your cooperation," the lead official said, dismissing her. As she left the room, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The truth about their experience would remain hidden, buried beneath layers of bureaucracy and secrecy. Months later, as Elena settled into a new role at a research facility on Earth, she often found herself staring at the stars. The vastness of space called to her, but a sense of dread lingered in her heart. The encounter haunted her dreams, a constant reminder of the darkness lurking beyond the stars. She often wondered about the creature they had faced, and the signals that had drawn them into the abyss. "Are you all right?" Rajesh asked, breaking her reverie. "Just thinking about what happened," Elena replied, her voice heavy. "We survived," Rajesh said, his tone reassuring. "But the truth is out there, and one day we might have to face it again." Elena nodded, feeling the weight of their experience settle over her like a shroud. The universe held secrets, and she couldn't shake the feeling that their encounter was just the beginning. As time passed, Elena began to notice strange occurrences around the facility. Equipment malfunctioned inexplicably, and whispers echoed through the halls late at night. "Is it just me, or do things feel off?" she asked Rajesh one evening as they worked late. "I've noticed it too," he admitted, his brow furrowing. "It's like something is watching us." The unease spread among the crew, and soon whispers of a conspiracy began to circulate. Elena felt the walls closing in, the pressure mounting as the shadows grew longer. One night, as Elena prepared to leave the facility, she received an urgent message from Mission Control. "We need you to come in. There's something you need to see." Elena's heart raced as she made her way to the command center. When she arrived, the atmosphere was charged with tension. The screens displayed a series of strange readings, unlike anything she had seen before. "Commander Vasquez, we've detected similar signals coming from Earth," one of the scientists said, their voice trembling. "Similar to the ones we encountered in space?" Elena asked, feeling a chill creep down her spine. "Yes," the scientist replied, nodding. "But they're stronger, more concentrated." "What does it mean?" Elena whispered, dread filling her heart. "We don't know," the scientist admitted, "but we think it's connected to what you experienced on the ISS." As the team worked frantically to analyze the data, Elena felt a familiar sense of foreboding. The darkness they had encountered was reaching out, and they were caught in its grasp once more. "Can we track the source of these signals?" Rajesh asked, his expression grave. "We're trying," the scientist replied, fingers flying over the keyboard. "But it's like it's cloaked, hidden beneath layers of interference." Elena felt her heart race. "We need to find it before it finds us." The team worked tirelessly, racing against the clock as the signals intensified. The air crackled with energy, the tension building to a fever pitch. As they neared a breakthrough, Elena suddenly felt a shift in the atmosphere, a palpable tension that sent shivers down her spine. "Something's coming," Rajesh said, his voice low. The lights flickered, and the screens went dark, plunging them into a void. Panic erupted as the team scrambled for their equipment, their voices rising in chaos. "Stay calm," Elena shouted, her voice rising above the din. "We need to stay focused." But the darkness was closing in, a suffocating force that threatened to consume them whole. The familiar sound of the creature echoed in her mind, a haunting reminder of their past. As the power surged back to life, the screens flickered back on, revealing a horrifying sight. The dark figure loomed large, more monstrous than before, its glowing eyes fixed on them with an insatiable hunger. "Elena!" Rajesh shouted, pointing at the screen. "It's here!" The team scrambled to respond, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They were no longer just scientists, they were warriors, fighting against an imaginable enemy. "Prepare for evacuation," Elena commanded, her heart racing. "We need to get to the surface." As they raced against time, the creature surged forward, its claws tearing through the facility. The walls shook, debris falling around them as they fought to escape. "Keep moving," Elena shouted, determination driving her forward. They reached the surface, the air thick with smoke and chaos. As they emerged, they saw the creature towering over them, an embodiment of darkness and despair. "Fight!" Elena roared, rallying her team. They stood together, a united front against the impending doom. With makeshift weapons and sheer willpower, they charged forward, determined to confront the terror that had haunted them for far too long. With a fierce battle cry, they surged towards the creature, a wave of defiance against the darkness. The world around them blurred into chaos as they fought for their lives, their spirits ignited by the flames of survival. "Don't back down," Elena shouted, rallying her team as they pressed forward. The creature roared, its voice echoing through the night, but they refused to relent. With every strike, they fought back against the darkness that threatened to consume them, their determination a beacon of light in the void. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, the creature let out a final, ear-splitting shriek before dissolving into shadows. The darkness receded, and silence enveloped them, a heavy stillness that felt both liberating and oppressive. "We did it," Rajesh said, his voice shaking as they stood together, battered but alive. Elena looked around at her team, the weight of their experience still heavy in her heart. They had faced unimaginable horrors, but they had emerged victorious. "Together," she whispered, tears of relief streaming down her cheeks. As the sun rose, illuminating the world around them, Elena knew that the darkness would always lurk just beyond the stars, but they were ready to face it. United by their experience, they had forged a bond that transcended the fear, a determination to uncover the truth that lay hidden in the void.